Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast as we head into our final segment of the day where I want to give out grades to each of the lottery picks from this past year's draft based off of how they performed in Summer League. Now, I want to note that this is not based off of my overall feelings on the picks and whether or not they will have any success, but a very small sample size here, so definitely keep that in mind. But without further ado here, the number one overall pick, Zachary Rees-Shea. Obviously, we had a lot of international players in this year's lottery, and it does lead to, I would do what I could to keep up with them, but at the same time, didn't really get to see all that much full game action. And my first impressions, really, from watching the full games with Rees-Shea is I see that he can be a good NBA player and that he can be probably a starter for the majority of teams once he does fully develop. Now, obviously, understanding being the number one overall pick, you have a little bit more drastic expectations behind you, but as far as what Rees-Shea can be, I don't think he's ever going to be a franchise player, but he did pretty well. And granted, just the 2 games that he played in, specifically the first game is where he was most impressive, but shooting splits were not quite where I'm sure the Hawks would have preferred them to be. Again, in a 2-game sample size, though, I mean, how much are you really going to how much stake are you going to put into that? But Rees-Shea, he's going to be able to play into the system offensively. He can be a plus defender when he puts all the tools together. So ultimately, I gave him a C+ with 14.5 points per game and 5 rebounds per game. Efficiency is going to be something that they'd like to work on, maybe a little bit defensively as well. But overall, I thought that he looked pretty solid. Can't say so much about the number 2 overall pick, Alex Sarr. Now, again, this is just based off of the games that we've already seen from these players in the Summer League. And Sarr, nobody is looking at what he did and said, yes, he gave really good production there. Now, I can see the long-term vision and the framework of how he can be an impactful player, but throughout the Summer League, he was really, really struggling. He was 9 of 47 from the floor in 4 games, just 19%. He was 2 of 17 from 3, so really bad there. Now, if you look at some of the rebounding and block numbers, they were good, 7.5 rebounds per game, 2.5 blocks per game, but especially during that game against Portland where he shot 0 for 15, you could see the fact that his offensive struggles were leading to a lack of intensity at times on the defensive end, I thought. And again, I feel like you look at a player who's 7 feet, he shot really poorly from 3 in this game, but I do think that that's a part of his game that we're going to be able to see develop at some point. He has all the fundamentals necessary from a defensive perspective. The 2.5 blocks per game, he's going to be facing obviously better competition once he's in the NBA, but he's a 7-footer that we know can play out on the perimeter. The fact is going to be if he can hold his own in the interior against bigger forces, and ultimately, he was a pretty good rim protector. Now, it's going to look differently again against NBA talent, but overall, I mean, D might be a little low. The highest I could really get with him is a D+, because again, the offense was horrendous for him, and that doesn't mean I'm out on him entirely, but we're talking about just these 4 games. He was very bad. But on the other hand, you did have some stars really shining out, Reed Sheppard being probably the biggest one. I think he was the most impressive rookie in the Summer League. He was a former 6-man at Kentucky University, and the question was going to be, is he capable of taking on a bigger workload? And, just the Summer League, but the answer would be yes to that question, at least as of now, where that he didn't even really have his 3-point shot with him this Summer League, and he was still an incredibly impactful player, 20 points per game, 5.3 assists per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, shot 50% from the field, even defensively, 2.8 steals per game. I've always been a believer in just his hands and his instincts in terms of getting steals, but also 1.3 blocks per game, pretty good for Reed Sheppard. I give him an A. I think he was the best rookie in the Summer League so far. So that's where I stand with him. Stephon Castle, tough evaluation because he only played one game. It wasn't extremely efficient, just 8 of 21 from the field. But I talked about this before. I thought that was in large part because of the fact that there weren't really other players around him to take some of those shots. I thought he got stuck in difficult positions where he had to sort of jack up a bad shot because he wasn't really around other NBA talent. I feel like once he is surrounded by more legitimate talent, he's going to probably not look to be a primary scorer quite as much. He wants to be a point guard. I think he wants to facilitate more if possible, and he's going to have options in front of him with some really nice players in Devin Vassell and in Victor Wembanyama to try and make that be the case. But you can see already the defensive intensity, his job around the perimeter and even, inside as well. He is going to be an elite defender. It's why I think that he's a very safe bet in terms of being a real rotation player in the NBA. Give him a C+ in this. Again, just one game. Definitely has room to grow, but showed the baseline of what he can be. Number 5 overall pick, Ron Holland. He is another player that played in the G League Ignite. I didn't get to see quite as much, but some very impressive, just moments. I would say more than anything. It's not like he was incredible from an efficiency standpoint, but I mean, this is a guy that the athleticism screams at you from the TV screen, and just the way that he is able to play with such a level of explosiveness. He is going to be an impact guy. Now, the fit with Detroit, obviously a team that can't shoot all that well already. He didn't necessarily have a tremendous efficiency throughout the Summer League, but still averaged 18.8 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game, 1.5 steals per game, and 1 block per game. I give him a B+. I was very happy with what I saw from him. Again, that entire Pistons group is going to have to learn to be a better offense to try and space out a little bit more. But Ron Holland, you see an NBA frame there 100%. Tijan Salon, the hustle player, you could say, for the Charlotte Hornets, just is going to be a player that I'm so excited to watch in the way that he is just always willing to try and outwork you, 110% effort. Going to be great for the culture in Charlotte. I think him and Brandon Miller are going to be a duo that Salon still has a lot of room to grow in terms of the consistency of his game and the offensive side, but as he learns everything, as he irons out the shortcomings, he's going to be a very nice addition to this Hornets roster that is trying to, under new head coach Charles Lee, be able to sort of correct where things have been going wrong the past number of years for them in terms of what a winning culture looks like. So I give him a B there. Donovan Clingan up next, the number 7 overall pick. Some crazy numbers from him rebounding and defensively, with leading the Summer League in rebounds per game and blocks per game. 12.3 boards, 4.3 blocks. We know he has the potential to be a real anchor defensively, and he definitely showed that off. Now, the concern was with his offense. Not efficient, 36% from the field. That is not good from the center position. Not just that, that's frankly bad from the center position. He took some threes. It was 3.3 attempts per game. That's not something that you expect from him coming into the NBA. Now, it was interesting to see him sort of letting it fly a little bit because that wasn't his role at UConn either. It's clearly something that he's working on. We'll see if it ever does translate for him. And the three-pointers ultimately did bring down his average a little bit more, but I'm going to have to be more efficient. I think that he will be a strong finisher in the pick and roll. I ultimately, though, again, with the defensive upside we see from him and the way that he was able to hold his own, I'm giving him a B+. The 8th overall pick, Rob Dillingham. Dillingham was kind of outshined by his teammate in Terrence Shannon Jr., just generally speaking here. Dillingham, like Shepard, was coming off of the bench for Kentucky last year and is going to, at least in this situation with the Summer League team, was asked to do a little bit more. The transition for him wasn't quite as seamless as it was for Reed Shepard, but I still was able to get to some of his spots, wasn't necessarily converting at the rate he would have liked to, 36 and 31% shooting splits, but was an excellent playmaker throughout his Summer League performances, averaged 7.6 assists per game. You would like to think that eventually the shot, he's always been a tough shot maker, that's going to come. The Timberwolves are just going to need him to be able to run a second unit, be another player that can actually take the ball up the court and initiate some sort of an offense. And again, that efficiency comes around, and the defense is definitely another conversation with Dillingham, but they just need to start with having some sort of a backup option after Mike Conley, because he is getting older and they don't really have anybody else. Number 9 overall pick, Zach Edey. Probably, for anybody who actually got on the court at least, the least amount of playing time, only 9 minutes in Vegas. I'm giving him a C+, though, because even outside of that, he did have the little bit of experience when he was playing in the Salt Lake City tournament. He was able to go up against some of the bigs of Utah in Walker Kessler and Kyle Filipowski, and he was a physical force, and he showed that he is capable of being a starter. Now, I thought about putting him with a B-, but there were still some things that even in that, Salt Lake City tournament, you could see defensively when it gets to the pick and roll against some of the more talented ball handlers and shot makers in the NBA. I feel like they could make him pay more. So I'm in on Edey as being somebody who can get minutes, but he's supposed to be the starter for the Grizzlies this year. Think he's going to have a lot of, positives as a prospect, but at the same time, again, some of those flaws could definitely come into fruition, and maybe there is injury concern. Knock on wood, hopefully not, because, one of the best college basketball players I've ever seen, and I want to see him at least get a fair chance at the NBA. I'm going to try and go a little bit rapid fire here for the last few picks because we are running out of time. But Cody Williams really, really impressed me. Just based off of, maybe it's myself that I was underrating him a little bit too much when he was at Colorado. I really didn't see much in his offensive game. Pretty mediocre handle. He was a good finisher, but outside of that, very little outside shot, it seemed like. And I thought that he proved me wrong on a number of those things. Actually, wasn't the cleanest handles in the world necessarily, but I saw him take a lot of guys off the dribble and get himself opportunities, both in pull-ups and finishing at the rim. So, assuming that, he is able to iron out the details a little bit, he has the frame to be able to be an NBA player. He finished tremendously in this game. 15 points per game, 55% from the field, 38% from three. Can't ask much more of him than that. So I was very happy with how he looked. I'm giving him an A-. Again, maybe overcompensating a little bit because I was too low on him coming into the draft. Not that I thought he was going to be a bust necessarily, but I was struggling to see, I did have some concerns, and it's not fully over, but in terms of what he's going to be able to do to round out his offensive game, I thought he showed a lot of flashes there. Number 11 pick, Manas Buzelis. Not his most efficient showing necessarily over the course of the few games that he played, but his intensity is just infectious to watch, and I really am looking forward to seeing how he could take over as a potential leader for the Bulls, as it seems like they are headed into a rebuild. Now, consistency with the jump shot is going to be something that is kind of, I don't know if I'm ready to go make or break necessarily with Buzelis in the NBA, but someone where if he had the consistency of that jump shot, he very likely could have gone number one overall. Now, that has not been the case, but ultimately, if he's able to get that down, he's going to be a franchise cornerstone. Next couple guys here, Nikola Topic and Devin Carter, both of them were injured. Topic dealing with his torn ACL, so he's going to miss this entire year. Devin Carter, I believe it was a torn labrum that he underwent surgery for a couple weeks ago. That's what John Morant was dealing with. So they're saying they're going to reevaluate in 6 months. I am a little skeptical about whether or not he's going to be able to return. So we will see there. But no grades for either one of them, obviously, because neither of them played. And then the final lottery pick, Bub Carrington for the Washington Wizards. Was nice for Wizards fans after seeing more of a project player in Alex Sarr struggling early on. To see Bub Carrington, their other lottery pick, show some flashes of potential. He was a little bit of a late riser in the draft process, at least during the college basketball season. And I thought that he showed out really well as a playmaker in the summer league here. Shot well from three specifically. Overall efficiency wasn't great. Defensively is going to need a little bit of work, but ultimately had a pretty good summer league. I am giving him a B+. But let me know who you think I hit on, missed on, who your favorite players from the summer league were. But that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning into the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. Remember to like, follow, subscribe wherever you keep up with us. Be sure to check us out on social media as well for more exclusive short content. And we will be back tomorrow afternoon, same time as always, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We will see you then. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.